is the secret struggle we share, the gnawing voice at the back of our skull that taunts the temporal lobe until we succumb to its raging sound. Shame. It haunts us, it hurts us, it cracks us, it kills us. Shame. We are taught from the moment we exit our mother's dark womb that our first mistake requires shame to be forgiven. I lied about brushing my teeth, shame. I fed my food to the dog, shame. I gained the weight back, I hid the self-harm, I let the bad men in my bed, shame. We have become so accustomed to shame that it has become synonymous with trauma, and we are predisposed to feeling shame after trauma that was not our fault. It climbs at the back of our neck, burrows into our bedsheets, pulsates the pit of our stomach. A reminder that we are exposed, that we are humiliated beyond repair. And when hiding in the hell of humiliation, we begin to question our worth, our livelihood, our reason for living at all. When you're outed as gay or transgender, when your bullies learn all your secrets, when your mental illness keeps you from class, shame at its best is a method of social warfare. Shame at its worst leads to suicide. As a teenager, 4 nude photos of me were posted on the internet on an anonymous message board where men preyed on my naked body and used my shame as a currency, meaning the more shame I felt, the more value they got from exploiting me. The world knew me as a slut, a teenage pariah shamed into silence. They knew my intimate parts so well that they could see my shame reflected off of my young skin. They trapped me without touching me. They held me hostage without ever inflicting physical harm. I hid this way for years as my photos trapped me in my internet browser. I grew up, I changed my name, I got tattoos, I shaved my head, but my shame followed me. My shame stayed alive as a young teenager who could not escape the dark web. My naked shame convinced me that I was wrong and unworthy. As a result, I tried to escape my skin with self-harm, alcohol abuse, and suicidal ideation. Shame is the ultimate wound, but one that can only be repaired by the person experiencing it. We hold the scalpel, the thread. The gauze is in our hands only. As I healed from this immense childhood trauma through therapy and medication, I began to tell my story. And I founded a 501c3 nonprofit that fights tech-based sexual abuse like that which happened to me. Telling my story and advocating for survivors began to repair the wound, lifting the burden of shame that had haunted my head for so long. As an anti-shame activist, I watched as survivors put their shamelessness on display and wondered desperately when I would push the shame out of my psyche for good. Even in my strongest moments of activism, leading a protest march across the Brooklyn Bridge, aiding victims worldwide, and helping to pass legislation to criminalize tech-based sexual abuse, I still heard voices of shame in my head. This time, shame told me that I was not enough of an activist, that I was too fat, too boisterous, or that I would be exploited on the internet again. I tried to cut it out, scream it out, speak the shame out of me. But I've learned that you can't kill shame or trauma. They will both always live with me. I will never be shameless, and that's okay. Instead, I've reclaimed my shame. I've recycled my reputation ruin. I've taken it and molded it into something tangible and viable and real. My reclaimed shame is the force behind my activism. It is the power pushing me across the bridge in the fight against tech-based sexual abuse. Reclaiming shame means not hating yourself when the bad thoughts come. It means meeting the bad thoughts. It means care. It means space. It means allowing yourself to be scared and sad and real. At the same time, it means giving yourself permission to fight back against those who have hurt you. Holding both the sword and the scalpel. Healing yourself while fighting through the thicket of trauma that seems nearly inescapable until you do it. I don't wish my shame upon anyone. Yet, I know that everyone feels shame. In our own unique ways, we are connected by that which makes us hate ourselves. But instead of turning to suicide when the pain of shame becomes too deep a burden to bear, let us mold our shame into a voice box, and let us use our voices to tell our stories. Reclaiming shame is not a prayer. It is truly possible to turn your agony into activism. I know. I've done it. When I speak to senators or public figures about criminalizing the crime that victimized me, I also hear a voice in the back of my head that tells me I do not deserve to be here. Instead of silencing that voice, instead of destroying my shame or shielding myself from it, I ask its loudness and its echo to join me in making the world a better place for those who have lived through what I have, for those who have died because of the trauma that I share. Shame is not a wasted emotion. It is an equal part of the human condition that reminds us why we are here. To reclaim it, we must first survive it. But to survive it and to embrace it is a very fortunate existence. Today, being here, I feel shame. Shame that my body is too big, that my voice is too loud, that my message is not universal or relevant. I will not hide my shame, nor will I try to camouflage it. I'll face it head on. Because action in spite of shame, or action as a result of a reclaimed shame, is big and loud and life-saving. This year, I saved my own life by taking back the trauma that tried to end it. This year, I kept myself alive by taking back the darkness that tried to end it. Shame is not a waste. Emotions are not a waste. We must embrace them, forgive ourselves for having them, and use them to change the world. Thank you.